Is my hair looking good? Okay.
This is mine, this one.
All right. Well, Joel, let's kick off. Here we are. Basically, this is episode 1, season 0. It's a pilot of a hi-fi show.
A hi-fi show, hopefully of many, many more.
Let's talk about hi-fis and let's talk about hi-fi shows. And in essence, I think just being a pilot, let's start with the basics of what it is that compromises hi-fi. So,
$1 million question. What compromises hi-fi? Everything after the music was recorded compromises hi-fi because nothing is as good as the real thing. But we can get damn close, and that's what we're here to discuss, I believe, to see how close we can get with hopefully spending the least amount of money to get the best
bang for the buck.
Bang for our buck.
So it's kind of like a bit of a philosophy, and I like philosophy because you can have a philosophy and people can challenge you around it and discuss positions around ideas, as opposed to having a hard line in the sand that thou shalt not cross. And in terms of philosophy, I think it's ours is around hi-fi is as close to reproducing live music, real world sounds as is possible. And I think it was the late, great Dion Skuman who once said to me that hi-fi is like looking through binoculars backwards. You get a very, very small picture of the actual reality of what it is.
True.
But I think that hi-fi has advanced in the last couple of years to the point where that's not necessarily completely true anymore. I think you can get a sense of realism with today's technology that you just weren't able to achieve a couple of years back. And I suppose that hi-fi is the pursuit of that idealistic end goal, at least for us. That's the base reference line.
I think what technology has done is when we first started in the game, your entry level was very entry level and sounded
Before Noah was on the ark.
And your high end was, and still is, stratospherically priced and out of reach of most people. But technology has brought the entry level eons closer to high end than it was before. So you can get acceptable performance from an entry level DA converter at reasonable money.
It's very like Formula One. So a Formula One brake caliper is £150,000 and they throw it away after each race and put a new one on. And the technology that goes into that filters down. It becomes part of your supercars. It then becomes part of your top of the range sports cars, and by the time you've turned around, it's on every car. So I think the same thing is actually what applies with hi-fi. You get filtered down from the high end into your mainstream products as you go.
Correct, yes. And there we're talking about, so I think we'll get this out of the way right now. Digital audio.
I suspect I know what's coming.
Digital audio, which has brought high-end audio and ease of use to all of us. When we start looking at the other side of high-end audio, those old Bata Spearless, vinyl, things like that, I know you're a huge fan of that. To get that right, the price has gone crazy.
Just for the record, I am the vinyl antichrist. So, I'm not a fan of vinyl.
I think for now we're going to concentrate mostly on what is accessible to most people, which is
let's go back to
digital audio, and because it's so much easier to get into it than.
Let's pick up on exactly that. So, in other words, what do you need to have a hi-fi? What is an actual hi-fi? Because I think sometimes these things are lost in translation. The absolute explosion, and you nailed it completely, of digital devices that take advantage of digital media, that is our sound that we listen to, are not necessarily always the best in terms of absolute sonic quality. And we say that whilst MP3 has brought music to the masses on a level that's never been seen in the human race ever before, I mean, the fact of the matter is you can have a 99 Rand a month Spotify or Tidal subscription, and you can access pretty much every single piece of music ever recorded, is a mind-blowing, phenomenal access to music that we've never seen before. And maybe we've become a little bit spoiled in the fact that we can listen to anything at virtually no cost, anywhere, at any time. We don't really pay that much attention to what it actually sounds like.
Well, chatting to a friend of mine who's been an audiophile for many years, and he looked into the genesis of a lot of the streaming services. And they were mostly all formed for background listening. They didn't really care initially about absolute sound quality because
you had CD. What would ever compete with CD? Yeah, exactly.
But you also were listening on a cheap pair of earphones that came bundled with your phone, or through a inexpensive desktop or PC speakers. So they didn't really care about us, the audiophiles, because it was more about getting the music out to the masses.
And also back in the early days, it was about file sizes, and access to high-speed internet wasn't a thing back then. Your CD stored 650 megabytes, which back then was enormous. It was the size of the world. And to download 650 megabytes from the internet would have taken about 3 years. So it's
cost you about
you're right.
$500,000
exactly.
At
So
our prices, yeah.
So the speed of tech has certainly improved access to much higher quality recordings, and I think that's kind of where you're going here in terms of the fact that now digital, when they actually start to translate original recordings into digital formats, or when they start recording digitally these days, the format is lossless. So in other words, it is as close to perfect of the original recording. In fact, if it's not the original recording, as it's almost possible to get.
It is, and if you're getting, if you're subscribing to the higher levels of your streaming services, you're getting lossless files, and if you're paying a little bit more, you're actually getting some feedback. As in, the big problem with streaming, or the biggest problem, is the computer on the sending end sends data. It doesn't really care what happens to it, so it can get corrupted on the way here, and that's when you see it a lot more than you hear it. Is when you're watching your Netflix movie and it starts getting blocky and things like that. It's because there is no feedback.
It downgrades the signal and drops the resolution to be able to buffer as you go. You know that buffering.
Yes. In audio,
well, in my case, processing.
Where you can get the same losses, but there are services that do have feedback that will say, we were supposed to get 1,000 bits, we got 6.
Yeah.
Send it again.
And make it right this time.
And make it right. And then that theoretically means that you're getting a bit perfect transfer of your music, and you can't really do better.
We are jumping ahead here a little bit, because this is what happens when two people who know hi-fi and discuss hi-fi get together. We tend to forget about what we actually wanted to chat about.
Yes.
And so let's go back to what is a hi-fi. So in essence, in order to make music, you need, in my mind of thinking, you need 3 things. You need the source of the music, which in this case we've talked about as being digital. You can have vinyl, you can have tapes. Do you remember tapes? You can have CDs,
yes.
You can have video discs, laser discs,
and
those
tapes
things.
Are coming back, believe it or not.
Another thing to add to my chuck it on the rubbish pile. You need a source of your actual music.
Yeah.
Then you need something, and to translate that source into something that your amplifier, which is the second thing you need, can actually understand. So you're taking a digital source and you're converting into what we call an analog signal,
source.
and your amplifier takes that analog signal and makes it louder so that you can play it through the third thing you need, which is a set of speakers.
Speakers, correct.
So source, amp, speakers, the 3 basic building blocks of a hi-fi, if we call it a hi-fi.
Yeah, pretty much any audio system. You need that for anything.
Correct. Now you do get analogies of things where you get all 3 in one. Example of that might be your phone. So your phone, you can play music on. It's downloading the signal, it's translating into analog, it's amplifying, and it's playing through its tiny little speaker. So that's an all-in-one example of pretty terrible sound, but it's
typical sound bar or
something along those lines.
Yeah.
So the 3 basics, the source, the amp, and the speakers. Audiophiles tend to regard those as separate events, separate processes that take place. And because we're audiophiles, we tend to like technical stuff. We like seeing stuff. We want to have boxes and systems and rooms and environments. But I don't think that's necessarily true of all audiophiles, to be perfectly honest. I think there's an appreciation these days for sound quality that comes out of doing it simply.
And convenient packages. I think both you and I have got systems at home that have got an amplifier that's got built-in, some kind of built-in processing. My amplifier at home has got a built-in, let's call it a processor, just to simplify things. And
by processor, we mean it takes your digital signal and processes it into an analog signal that your amplifier then, in its one box, understands.
I can either plug in an analog source, so I can plug my turntable in, roll your eyes later, an analog side, or I can plug my laptop via USB straight into it, or I've got some other digital inputs, I can plug them in. I've got a separate streaming box, which goes via optical cable, but we'll get into those at some kind of later stage.
That's the connectivity of these things is a whole discussion all by itself.
But it's
because now
but
we
to
get
listen
into
to music, I
nuances of
literally,
cable.
if my laptop is connected and if I'm working, it's always connected. I literally have to push one button on a remote,
And it turns on.
and I'm connected. And it's as simple as that. And yes, pure audiophile terms, we can get boxes upon boxes. We can get digital analog converters that have got external power supplies. So you've got two boxes instead of three boxes.
We can separate our 3 boxes into many boxes
Correct.
quite easily. You talk about power supplies. We can do boxes just with power supplies, and that's just the stuff that feeds the power to your boxes, guys. It's not the actual,
Yeah.
it's not the actual power supply inside the amp. That's a whole different story. So there's a huge amount of complications that one can add to this hobby, and as you add extra layers of sophistication, the idea behind it is that you're getting a better result coming out of your speakers. And I just want to talk about speakers for a little bit, because they seem to be they don't seem to be, they are the interface that you have between music and your ears. And it's a highly personal, subjective thing that each one of us experiences the audio world in slightly different ways. The reason for that is, of course, because our ears are different. So what you may enjoy in music is a subject of how your ears hear, what your emotional state is, what your personal preferences for music are, and mine might be very different. So the point of this is that there's no right and wrong here. It's about what it is that you enjoy, how well it gets to your level of understanding. I just whacked my mic here, so there's probably a great big thunk coming through there. Is this thing on? Yeah, there we go. So it's your understanding of what real world music sounds like, if that's your basis of reference.
Well, yes, technically. I say technically, in that if we go back 2 steps, if we go back to listening to live music, if both of us listen to live music, we will experience it differently because, yes, we do hear differently. The importance of good reproduction, and specifically speaking here, or speaking of speakers, should I say, is we would like speakers that reproduce the original thing as accurately as possible, even if we perceive them differently. The best analogy I can think of that is if we're watching TV, our vision is all slightly different. But most of us, excluding those people that are colorblind or something, will perceive red as being red and green as green, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah.
If our TVs were highly inaccurate and red was shown as green, even though we might perceive it and enjoy the content differently, we would all go,
that's not right.
That's not right.
Yeah.
So you do want your device that plays the media, whether it's a TV, whether it's
Or
speakers
music.
that are reproducing it, to be as accurate as possible,
Yeah.
even if we perceive things slightly differently, because we're all perceiving the same thing.
Correct.
So, yes, again, another tangent going geeky and stuff, but
Again, philosophy.
we go, yes, philosophy.
So that's exactly it. And I mean, so it's a very simple case these days of the absolute plethora of music that's become available, and the sound that we engage with every day has become ubiquitous. It's our world has changed from one of being drab grays that it was in the in the 1200s before they invented dyes for clothes and things into the vibrant colored world that it is today. The same thing's happened with audio. You know, you've got audio pretty much everywhere. And I was at Comic-Con a couple of months ago, and it struck me there about, you know, sort of the gaming environment, how very much a part of the gaming environment the audio actually has become. So, you know, when you're playing the first-person shooters, which are things I just don't understand because I'm no good at them, but the kids that play them are amazing. The engagement that they have, all of them are wearing headphones because they don't want to interfere with everybody else, and listening to the sound around them. So you're becoming inherently part of the game from a sonic point of view as well. And I have to be honest, the quality of sound I've heard at gaming is appalling. It's not great compared to just an entry level audio setup that we would put together, for example. So it might be that I think youngsters who are gaming these days should just get themselves an amp and a pair of speakers and plug their game into that, and it would transform their experience.
Their gaming performance would more than likely improve too, because particularly if you're part of a team, if you can hear your team members better, you can react to their requests, demands, shouts, screams.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right. And so what's so interesting is that in gaming you've got first person shooter. You can see all your friends around you, but you can't hear them. You can hear them through your headphones, but you're not getting a sense of direction of where they are. Are they behind you? Are they in front of you? Where's the enemy be creeping you? Where the shot's coming from? That kind of thing. So it's a very interesting challenge for gaming to solve. But I digress. It was just an observation in terms of that. The other thing that I found is that, you know, when you've got, as you get to our age, we've got a couple of grey hairs, you know, we've been around the block a few times and we've listened to some systems. I mean, let's be honest, we've heard stuff, you know, ranging from entry-level rubbish to really high-end rubbish to some superb stuff in between. And it's a case of understanding what music is capable of generating is something that I think we want to bring to the younger generation, because somewhere in between, I suspect there's a lot of them that are just getting dropped off that loop. And when I was at Cinema Architects last week, what they've done is they've brought back the hi-fi dealer. Now, how cool is that? Do you remember hi-fi dealers?
I think we all do remember going into hi-fi stores and being treated like a person, even though you were a young teenager, because they wanted to get you listening to music.
Exactly. And that's what he's done. So you can go there. You've got several different setups with entry-level pair of speakers, entry-level amp, entry-level source, all the way up to quite decent stuff. And you can listen to each system there and then. And I think if you hear music as it was actually originally intended to be played, because let's face it, if you're a musician and you're doing a recording and you want your audience to engage with you, you're not going to be doing that to just a compressed version of music that'll be fine. You want to do it to a decent standard so you can engage your audience.
You want people to hear the effort that you've put into
100%
into your music. Well, I must, again, digressing very, very slightly. You know, you're talking about cinema architects and entry-level systems. They don't perform like those old entry-level systems that we spoke about.
It's entry-level in today's terms.
In today's terms, yes.
Absolutely.
But
no, absolutely.
I think we sometimes have to be a little bit careful in putting too many tags on things. Because
you're right. So entry-level these days is what we would call mid to high range.
Exactly.
20 years ago.
So they are all systems that are capable of delivering a proper sense of music.
Yeah.
Some just do it better than others, and typically the noughts that go at the end of the stickers tend to increase.
I'll tell you what drove this home to me more strongly than anything. I was with a really good friend of mine who's been into hi-fi for a long time. Sort of, he's had a set of speakers, he's had his CD player, and that's it. And we sat at Audioholics one day and we listened to B&W 802s unbox the diamond things. 800 grand a set of speakers. And we listened to just one or two tracks that we happen to know quite well. At the end of it, he says, I have never heard music like that before. And he's my age. And you kind of think, well, where have you been? What have you been doing all this time? This is what it's about. And I suppose that that's when you're getting to the really sort of crusty levels of audiophilia. But the point of the matter is that if you've got your three box setup, you can start with your source. You have an amp, you have a set of speakers, and then later on you can decide, hey, I want bigger speakers. And I mean, let's admit it, when it comes to speakers, you can never have big enough. Yep. The bigger, the better. Well, that's my philosophy anyway.
Well, I think as people that have owned big speakers, and look, funny thing, I mean, I look at my speakers at home and I go, they're not that big. And then I often have to step back and go, they stand 1.2 meters tall.
Yeah.
They're bigger than, one speaker is bigger than most people's entire audio system in their whole home. So it's a relative thing.
It's a journey. And I mean, you don't need to get to that. I mean, I one of my favorite pairs of speakers that I still own on my little baby Xavier Mears, little boxes, that big. Just a really, really clean reference studio monitor and lovely to listen to. Just delightful. You just want the big speakers for that deep end, high end thumping bass. But you can listen to music and enjoy it just as much without that. And I think that's so each to their own. So it's the point about hi-fi is that it's a journey, and we want to get more people onto that journey. To understand that actually what they're listening to on their digital streaming via a compressed Bluetooth transmitted signal isn't actually as good as it gets. And if you listen to the same thing on a system that's just a modicum more sophisticated, your experience of music will be transformational.
It is. And I know I've said this to you before in one of my sayings, and I have lots of sayings and things. Is
if you don't like them, you've got others.
Yeah, if you don't like my views, I can change them for the right amount of money. Listening to music is part of it. You listen to music and that's fantastic. But let us show you what it can sound like.
Yeah.
And let us highlight what you've been missing. And once you experience it,
well, this is the thing. You've got them. Because once you've heard it, you can't unhear it. So it's...
And you get to the point where, I'm sure you're in the same boat as I am. I've got a 17-year-old daughter.
We've become drug pushers, actually. We're
yes.
pushing the drug of music.
It's a good drug, though.
It is a good drug.
Just a 17-year-old daughter who is quite fussy about the headphones she listens to nowadays because she doesn't want to listen to just your ordinary bundled headphones because she doesn't hear the music the way she's become used to it.
Yeah.
Yes, it helps that she sings and plays piano.
Sure.
Which means she has a reference.
Lots of live references.
But
it was interesting. It was interesting in terms of the live references. Something you actually said yesterday at the Max Car event where we do what we call it maximum audio excellence in terms of referencing, maximum audio accuracy in terms of what we try to reference car sound to live music and establish a baseline around how car sound performs technically. We're trying to take the subjective side of things out and make it objective. And one of the questions that was posed by someone was, well, how do we reference music? We kind of like, you don't need to reference music per se. You can reference sound, like snapping your fingers. Your ears pick that up. And you get a sense of ambience. The human voice, clapping hands in the studio. It's wonderful and dead, so everything's you don't get any reverb. But if you do clap your hands in an area where you're supposed to get reverb, then your system must be able to produce it for you. It must generate that illusion for you.
Great.
So it doesn't necessarily have to be music. Of course, what we're saying is go out there and go and listen to a live concert. Go and sit down in the Linda and get blasted by a horn and understand that, if the trumpet is blowing straight at you, it is not pleasant. It is loud. It is very loud.
Easier ways to do things. There are a number of music stores, as in old-fashioned stores that sell musical instruments, and they've always got
someone fiddling around in there.
Something, yeah. And you can, usually if you go in, you'd say, can I just plunk my finger on a piano? As long as that's pretty much what you're going to do, they would be happy
to let you do that.
So you can actually listen to a real piano.
And if you're entirely unlike me, if you plonk it down on middle C, you can hear harmonics resonating throughout the soundboard. That takes a while to get into that, but
So now, all right,
we'll touch that later.
One step back. What are harmonics? Well,
Yeah, no,
overtones and undertones of music.
whole
and different
technical
things.
discussion that
But
comes
basically, what William's saying there is that a piano doesn't just play a single note; it plays
up.
several notes at the same time. And the better your system, and the better it was recorded, because we also have to start it that side too.
Ugh.
The more you'll hear the naturalness, let's leave it there, won't go into other technical terms, of what a piano sounds like, or a drum, or any
Correct.
musical instrument.
Correct. And I mean that becomes your basis of reference. And when you understand, or maybe when you listen to a hi-fi setup, you'll see how much closer it takes you to that than what you've been used to. And then that becomes the first step on your hi-fi journey. Joel, I think that's fantastic. I think that's a great
Perfect.
place to actually leave
All
it.
right.
And I think next time we must start to talk about how we do recordings. How do we get the source? Because if it isn't at the source, it's never coming through.
If it's not captured,
You can't hear it.
you can't hear it. Yeah. It's the same thing with photography.
Yep.
If your picture is slightly out of focus, it's out of focus. There's lots of digital manipulation you can do to make it slightly better, but if it's not there,
You can't.
it's not there.
Yeah, 100%. And let's just let our viewers think about that for a little bit and digest on it, and then we'll get into it in our next pilot.
Perfect.
Thanks, Joel.
Look forward.
It's been awesome.
Great. Thank you.